Okay, this is a video about the problem I have with liberals. And the problem I have with liberals is that they are all snide, unhappy, miserable, resentful cowards. Now, why do I say that? To my mind, the liberal mindset is, I'm going to get back at the world because I am too weak to stand up against something. Now, when I see a liberal, I usually see someone who has adopted a kind of a persona. They will be dressed in clothing which is intended to try to upset other people. They will have a hairstyle which is intended to demonstrate something. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm averse to other people having weird and wonderful dress codes, but there's always something about a liberal's dress which is intended to express that they are edgy in some way. I don't have a problem with people expressing themselves with the way they dress in general. Really, I mean, I think that's fine. But when it comes to a liberal, they are trying to annoy. They're not just trying to express themselves in a free way. They're trying to annoy. There's a difference. Someone can be dressed or have a hairstyle which is designed to be different or unique. But liberals are always trying to do so to annoy or to upset or to aggravate. That's their little power trip. That's their little thing. Like, haha, I'll do this just to get at people, just to make them feel uncomfortable. You know, a lot of the time they'll dress in a way which demonstrates, well, almost like quasi-military fatigues, like you might expect a communist to. And a lot of liberals think that communism is some wonderful thing, and they have this kind of wink wink nudge nudge you know, that's the way things should be, we'll destroy the establishment using communism kind of idea. And these guys are just idiots, and they are the useful idiots that the communists used to talk about. These fools who in many cases are fairly well educated but have just been corrupted from their own culture into this idea of undermining things, which is their little power trip. Some of these guys, you know, may have come from oppressive households, i.e. their family or parents were quite strict with them, and their little fight back against the world is to adopt liberalism because they think that any authority in the world is just bad and is a personal snipe against, a personal attack on them. And it isn't. And they are snivelling, whining, nasty, bitter people in every case, masking themselves with the notion of saving other people, saving oppressed people. But they're not. They have this thing in them which is that they're obsessed with finding other people who are weak or supposedly weak and fighting their battles for them because they couldn't fight their own battles themselves. And that is damaging to the society that they're in. I don't mind people having freedom, but freedom carries responsibility. But these idiots don't have that in their mind. They're not actually rational people. They don't think. They've been fed garbage and they regurgitate it because it makes them feel better. And I've met a hell of a lot of liberals in my life. And each and every time I talk to them, it doesn't take long before the truth to be quite evident. That they're just miserable, unhappy people who are trying to get back at the notion of authority by doing anything they can to attack anything which is considered normal or orthodox. And people have the right to have different ideas. That's important. But these people don't actually have their own ideas. Being creative in response to a challenge or a problem is different to just steadfastly being anti-establishment. These people are mental. And they hide it behind supposed causes. And those causes are usually spoon-fed to them by people who have a globalist communist sentiment, who use these people against their own people. And they don't have their own ideas and intelligences. But years ago, in about 2008, when this banking problem occurred, I was annoyed by it all, and I thought, well, how does a person respond to this kind of thing? And I became aware of a group of people who were gathered under a banner called Occupy, as in Occupy Wall Street, Occupy the London Stock Exchange. And I thought, well, these people are probably worthwhile. And so I met with some of them. They had little campsites in my town, and I got involved with them, and I started talking with them, and it was amazing. It was a breath of fresh air, because these people were actually talking about political issues, and it was really a lovely experience. However, they had no alternative plans at all. All they wanted to do was, in their words, FS up. If you can fill in the blanks there, the F word and the S word. All they wanted to do was mess things up. That was their way of doing things, or I don't know. They weren't trying to solve anything. And when I sat down, and I was like, okay, look, it's all very well noticing a problem, but we have to come up with a better solution. And immediately these people went blank, and all they wanted to do is just get high or get drunk. And I was just like, you people are protesting about something, but you're not actually interested in fixing anything. You're denying responsibility. And eventually I realized these people were just acting like children, throwing their toys out of the pram because they could. They were getting back at society, jumping on any cause they could. And these people do this. These people routinely just jump on any cause they can. Now, there was goodness in these people at heart, and that's the truth. I think a lot of them were very, very badly misled, but essentially they had good hearts. But what they didn't have was good brains, or at least they weren't using them. They just wanted to cause trouble so as to express something. Now, that's not ever going to solve a problem. That just makes a person a further problem. So eventually I just distanced myself from them and walked away. It was interesting to note that people do genuinely gather when necessary to address political issues, but looking at these people, I was just sorely disappointed. So it was good for me to expose myself to that, but it made me aware of what liberalism really is. And it's essentially a tool of communism, which has which uses the promise of freedom and wonder and all this for some people who are apparently oppressed. But the truth is, all it is an attempt to deviate a lot of the population into a vulnerable part of the population into a condition of general ranting misery. Not even ranting misery, how would I put it? They're just opposed to any form of authority. So they jump on any cause they can which represents a supposedly oppressed minority. And those who are trying to institute this one world government, which can never be, are using these people to... They're trying to create as many minorities as possible so that these people grow in number and feel emboldened. Well, it's just a way of trying to destroy a nation. Anyway, that's my opinion on liberalism and liberals. They're just idiots, you know? And all it takes is for someone to rationally ask them a few questions and their whole position falls apart. And 90% of them, once you start asking questions, they just, oh, okay, and then they just dissolve. I mean, you know, you can lead them into using their brain just to some extent. Now, 10% become vicious when you actually confront them with their own idiocy. And you don't have to say anything mean to them. You just ask them questions they can't answer, and then they implode. And if you do it gently, yeah, you can, you know, a lot of the time help them to start thinking for themselves, which they may never have done. But some of them are vicious and nasty and unhappy, and they feel so appalled that they can't. They feel appalled with their own, I think, with how far they've gone down this road of nonsense, and they feel embarrassed. And you can try and be gentle with them, but some of them are just really, really wretched, and you just got to leave them alone. And they'll probably eventually go away and change their minds anyway. But this is the thing. Encouraging people to think for themselves is important. That actually precludes this problem. Because anyone who thinks for half a minute about the nonsense that these people vomit out, which has been poured into their brains, you know, without them actually processing it, will just reject it as nonsense. That doesn't mean that, you know, you should go around oppressing people. But it, you know, there's an agenda afoot to destroy our countries. So, and liberalism and liberals are being used as tools, and they don't even realise it. And even, you know, if a liberal was to hear this, they'd be like, oh, 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 and that's all they'd do. They would just experience anger, because they wouldn't be thinking, they would just be reacting. If they sat down and applied their brains, it would become clear that what they're talking about is nonsense anyway. It's okay to, you know, to take care of people and to protect people's rights, but these people aren't as interested in that as they are interested in pursuing their own little vendetta against perceived authority, and that's the problem. So that's what liberals are, and the best thing to do for them is to encourage them to start thinking for themselves and to train them to start thinking for themselves by asking them questions which force them to think, and then managing the outcome. You don't go, aha, see, you're an idiot. If you do that to them, you'll just alienate them. So you just say, oh, okay. You know, you encourage them to have their own thoughts on things. That's how you deal with a liberal. And those who have created the liberals don't want you to do that. They want liberals to hate you, and they want you to hate liberals. But I don't hate them. They're not using their brains. They're not thinking. So yeah, to deal with a liberal, all you have to do is ask them questions about where they're coming from, which they can't answer without acknowledging the nonsense that they're speaking. And then you just handle them very gently and very sensitively and say, oh, okay. You know, you just allow them to come to the understanding themselves, and they'll be fine. But it is a bit of a job to do, and I've done a lot of it. I do find it a bit tiring, but anyway. Yeah, I don't know what made me think of making this video, but yeah. Liberals are a pain in the backside. Oh yeah, there was one other point I wanted to make about them, which I'll have to put in another video now.